Hello and welcome to Eramis Soccer with myself, Stu Flaherty, and Justin Hoyte. Welcome, Justin.
How's things, mate? Good evening.
Very good.
Oh, I should say afternoon to you.
Right. And we're on to the semi-finals of the Gold Cup now. USA against Panama. And is this an upset, Justin? Panama's made the final. Panama's put out the USA. On paper, it's an upset. In reality, there's a lot of B/C team players out for the USA. Well, what are your thoughts on the result? Is it an upset or is it the result you expected?
No, it's an upset. You have to say it's an upset for the US to not reach a final. Everyone is expecting the US and Mexico final. You're looking at the Gold Cup. That's what everyone expecting. No matter what team the US put out, you know, there's good individuals. They're a good team. They've got players that are playing regular football. Okay, they're young, a majority of them, but they've still got a lot of experience. And, you would look at the US side and think, it is an upset that they lost.
Yeah. And, I like what the coach did, to be honest with you, because we're looking at the lineup for the USA team here. And BJ Callahan has a choice for me after the quarterfinal. He's got Jesus Ferreira. He's got Big Vasquez. He's got the youngster Cowell. They're all decent options. I'm thinking in my head, who's he going to go without the front three? And he started them all. So there's there'll be nothing in the back of his head, no what if in terms of attacking talent. He's went with a front three of Vasquez, Cowell, Ferreira. He's went with a midfield of Busio, Mihailovic, and the very impressive Sands, who I thought played well in this game. We got Aaron Long coming in at centre-back next to Miles Robinson. And the young fullback pairing, who I think have been good, of DeJuan Jones and Reynolds on the right, Matt Turner in goal. Any surprises in that lineup, Justin? And who jumped out to you as an impact performer in the game?
To be fair, I was actually surprised that they played the front three that they did, which was surprising. I didn't think they was going to go with the front three that they did. It was refreshing to see, good to see. As I said, I'm a big fan of Ferreira. And I thought playing Vasquez and Cowell together would be a dangerous partnership, all three of them. Did it work? Who knows? But most certainly, it is a front three that you would look at for the future of the US national team. Are they all going to start? Is one going to start and one or two not going to start? Obviously, when the big guns come back that we know, will probably play, but I would say Ferreira for me has been a standout, not only throughout this tournament, in this game especially, but for me he's one that for sure will be probably one of a regular for the US national team.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at these tournament squads, how often in England do we have players who make it? I know a classic one was Gareth Barry, because they can fill multiple roles. So they're almost not even up for debate. They're just put in the squad because they cover at least the backup option in several places. And in this tournament alone, for me, Ferreira showed the ability to play 9, to play 10. Yeah. He's playing out on the wing here. I'd be very surprised not to see him in the 26 World Cup squad.
Yeah, 100%. And as you know, in tournament football, not only do you need players in their best position, you also need squad and role players. And he's a perfect example of that. If you was a coach, or you are a coach and you have an option to pick a player who can only be your total number 9, and you've got other players who can work around him, or you've got a player who can play in 3 or 4 positions and play them really, really well, you're going to pick the player who can play in 3 or 4 positions. Why? Just because in games, he can come on the left, he can come on the right, he can come on as a number 9. If anything happens in the game, he can start. And if you need to move him to the side to bring on another number 9, he can move to the side, or he can play as a number 10. So in that sense, you would pick someone who is a squad player who can play in multiple positions. And to his credit, he's good at multiple positions. And he showed that in this game. He showed that in other games here, where he's not only been the number 9 that scored goals, he's been on the wing and created chances. So in that sense, that's why I say he's a young player who's really good, and I hold him very highly. And I think I can't see why people would be saying bad things about him. I think he's a great player, and I think he's got a really, really bright future.
Yeah. And I think, you also take into account the one tournament he's been given a shot here. 7 goals. It's a rare feat.
That's what I mean. No matter what opposition you're playing against, 7 goals in a tournament, that's a lot of goals. That
Yeah.
no matter what you look at, and at the end of the day, on his CV, what are people going to look at? How many goals did he score in this tournament? How many goals has he scored this season? How many goals has he scored for the national team at a young age? How many goals and appearances he had? His numbers don't lie. No matter what opposition you play against, you look at the England team. Look what opponents they play against. So at the end of the day, you got to beat what's in front of you. You can't say these smaller nations aren't good because they're all international players. They're there for a reason, So no, he's a good player, and there's other players in the national team that in this game or in the squad that for sure. And if all goes well and they stay healthy and they keep on performing well, of course they'll go to the World Cup, 100%. Or even Copa America's coming up too as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So we followed the USA, but let's have a little look at Panama's road to the final here. The group they were in was Panama, Costa Rica, Martinique, and El Salvador. I think without even checking, the bookmakers' odds have probably got heavy favourites of Panama and Costa Rica coming out of this group all along as the top 2 to go to the quarters. And in game 1, they've went against Costa Rica. 2-1 win with goals coming from Fajardo and Barcenas. So they're in the driver's seat from the off. They followed that up playing against Martinique, who's won the other opening game in Group C. And they've beaten Martinique 2-1 with goals from Fajardo and Murillo. Interesting bit of symmetry here. Both games, Panama go up 2-1, and both games they concede the goal. Both games they go up 2-0. And both games they concede a goal in injury time for the final score of 2-1. They get to this final group stage game. They've already qualified. 2-2 draw with El Salvador. Escobar and Diaz with the goals. They concede in injury time for the 3rd straight game, despite not losing. And they're out as Group C winners. They play Qatar in the knockouts. Quite the game. Barcenas puts them 1-0 up. And then Diaz nets a 10-minute hat-trick to blow away Qatar 4-0. And then we're into the semi-finals here against the USA. And yes, they're the underdogs on paper, but they're also, it seems to mean a lot to Panama. US soccer has made a conscious decision to, they've not sent their head coach. There was the whole fiasco over that. They've left out a lot of big guns because of the European calendar. Whereas it seems like Thomas Christiansen and Panama, they're here to win this tournament. Seems to mean absolutely everything to them. And regardless of personnel, that's a big advantage in sports, right? If it just simply means more to you.
Yeah, of course, and you're probably gonna give more than the opponent team. Just because you've got it all on the line, you've got everything, and no matter what team is playing against the US, they're gonna play their best. They're gonna give it all because it's a big victory if you beat the US, like a side like Panama, who the US are coming to this tournament not with their major players. What kind of statement does that send to the rest of the tournament? To the rest of the players that are in the tournament? But respect to the US national team players that are there. They're very good players. And Panama also shown in this tournament, and especially in this game, how good they actually are. They've got some really good individuals, and I feel that they played really well as a team. And at the end of the day, there's a reason why they got to the final. Okay, you can say it went to penalties, but at the end of the day, they've got there. They've got to the semi-final, and they made it to the final over penalties. So in that sense, you have to congratulate them. They've got some fantastic players, Diaz, and a lot of players and a few of the players are playing in the MLS. So that just shows that these aren't bad players at all, and that they're actually really good. And they've played against a lot of these US players, men's national team players already. So they knew what they was up for, and they knew that if they got a victory, that's a huge statement for Panama, huge for the country, and it's a good victory for them.
Yeah, and USA flies out from the kickoff here. There's no question about player motivation after you watch the opening of the game. Ferreira pressures. Vasquez feeds Cowell. There's a shot fired off the goalpost early. Panama go down the other end, and James Sands breaks up the attack with a play on top of his own 18. Him breaking up the attack becomes very much a theme of the game. Second minute, Ferreira hits a shot straight at the goalkeeper. It's a little bit of a weak shot, but USA have certainly flew out the gate here. 6 minutes, bit of interchange between Jones and Mihailovic, and then Vasquez releases Cowell, who's crowded out. But it's an aggressive start. It's a front foot start. We've got a pretty exciting front three here. And if you pause that video 10 minutes into the game and ask me what's going to happen, I wouldn't have expected Panama to come through this game off the first impression. What were your thoughts of the early stages of the game?
I felt like US wanted to send a statement to say, right, we're here to win. And I felt like they wanted to put pressure on Panama early, try and get the early goal, and really unsettle Panama. I feel if the US would have scored first, I don't think Panama would have taken them to extra time and penalties. But credit to Panama, they ground out ground it out till half time, and you know, the US tried and they just couldn't do it. But credit to Panama, I still feel they played really, really well in the first half.
Yeah, they came back into the game. 12th minute, we got the first Panama attack. Two pretty weak clearances. Second from Robinson, sees the ball fall to Diaz. He drives in and a shot from an angle. It's right at Turner, so it's a save, but it's a save you expect the goalkeeper to make. Then you got Diaz to Fajardo. Turner comes off his line to deal with it. A few minutes later, Quintero gets a cross in. Fajardo heads wide. Panama starting to show their teeth and starting to look a bit more like a battle. Any Panama players in the first half that particularly impressed you?
Let me pull up their team now, and I'll tell you exactly who. Obviously, Diaz. Quintero, good player.
Yeah.
And the Houston midfield player, I can't pronounce his last name.
Carrasquilla is my best effort.
Carrasquilla, yeah, that's the one. I think he's a very good player. I really like him. I watched him play against Cincinnati and early on in the season, and I felt he was one of the standout players. All right, Houston wasn't connecting right, but I feel like he is one of the main players, and I felt like he was a huge impact player and a player that played really well for Panama and a standout player for me for sure. And he got an assist as well. So
yeah, I thought he was the man of the match for me. Interesting corner in the 28th minute. Panama take a short corner. We've all seen that before. Ball's passed backward. Seen that before. Pass backward again. So it's about 35 to 40 yards away from their own corner. See that a lot less. And then 8 plays a ball back over the top to Bacenas. Lovely one-time finish, and the goal's disallowed, but it very much looked like a design play to pass the ball backwards 3 times, send it 35 yards away after a corner, and then chip a through ball in and beat the keeper. I've never seen that before. I've certainly never seen it work before. Our boy here is wagging his finger to the linesman, but he is absolutely miles offside. Have you ever seen that before?
No, I've never seen that before. That's a real training ground set piece there from the set piece coach. Yeah, but no, it worked. And what a ball though! You got on a ball. Yeah. What a ball! Like what a pass that is. But no, I've never come across that before. I've seen players play it once or twice back, but not 3 or 4 times. I thought that was kind of crazy. But I guess it worked because it caught US.
It definitely worked.
Do you know what I mean? They didn't expect it. They didn't know what to do, and I kept caught them off guard and caught them ball watching. Yeah, they nearly scored from it. It created them a chance.
I'm sat there, and you just like get hypnotized. You're like, what are they doing? And then bang, ball's over the top, and he's in.
That was their plan. Yeah, I might have to use that one.
Yeah, I will not be using it, but
try it. Try it, training, see how it goes, coach.
Yeah, let's do it. You know, it's one of those where if I did actually roll it out, you know, they wouldn't say nothing because they're good lads and they're respectful lads. But I know for a fact the players behind my back were like, this dude's not.
You'll have to show them this game and then you say, see, this is how it works.
We're doing this. There's another good ball Godoy, who I really like, Karaskia and Godoy in centre mid in this 3-4-3. We'll talk about it a bit more later. Really impressed with them. Really enjoyed watching them. Reminded me a little bit of Bruno's Wolves team with a 3-4-3 and Neves in there and just being able to move it around. He's played a diagonal out to the left wing back, Davis, who I thought was very good. I'm going to say that at about very good. I'm going to say about 6 Panama players. He beats the fullback off his first touch. He cuts the ball back to Diaz, who's beat Busio, lost him pretty easily, but the chance goes begging. But they're looking more and more dangerous as this game goes on. And I'm starting to, get a different gut feeling as to the momentum of the game. Playing some lovely stuff by now. 43rd minute. The left back Davis starts to move. Godoy's involved. Karaskia is involved. It ends up in a skewed cross. Ball eventually falls to someone and smashes wide. But I guess what I'm most impressed with is they're just moving the ball around the field 1 and 2 touch. They're getting it into the centre mids area and out again very quickly. And why that impresses me is if you're playing a 3-4-3 and you're playing against this USA 4-3-3, then, in theory, the USA is a man up. In theory, it's 2 centre mids for Panama against 3 centre mids for the USA, but it just does not look like that at all. Panama's able to get the ball in and out of Karaskia and Godoy very quickly. They have those front 3 changing levels and being between the lines, so they've always got either a number 10 or a check winger. And A, it's good to watch, and B, it's very dangerous. It looks like the USA can't quite get a handle on this. What are you thinking when you're watching this?
Tactically, the US don't know how to deal with it. And I would say why they don't know how to deal with it is maybe his inexperience of the players, not playing against this type of opponent, this type of players. And maybe also the coach not understanding how to defend against it, how to counterattack against it. So in that sense, it's a bit of both, but also you have to credit Panama for obviously doing a bit of background research, doing a bit of video and looking at some weak points from the US. And, Panama have got a lot of quick, technical, skillful, good on the ball players. And it showed in this game. And that is another reason why you saw Panama getting a lot of joy. They got into spaces that the front 3 understood that, they can interchange. They can get into little pockets against the US team. The wing backs, I would call them, could get forward, which created space for the 2 centre midfielders to be able to get on the ball and play quick passing. And I felt the quick passing really unsettled the US, and they didn't know how to deal with that.
Interesting. Now, let's say there's a youth coach or a high school coach or a college coach watching, and they've played a 3-4-3 themselves and they've had these problems. You've obviously played it with your career in England and America. What would be a bit of advice you would give to defend against that 3-4-3?
Against the 3-4-3, I guess you would just stay compact and force the play to one side and literally don't let them, just keep the ball on one side and don't let them turn out, be able to go through midfield and switch to play. Because if they can switch to play, they're always going to be dangerous on the opposite side of the field because they've got someone so wide and so high. But if you're able to lock them in on one side and literally swamp them on one side and keep the ball down that one side, then you should be able to recover the ball back and be able to counterattack against that and be able to outnumber them.
Yeah.
I'm a 4-3-3 kind of guy or 4-3-3 kind of person. But sometimes I thought about if I'm a coach, would I play 3 at the back? But I don't know.
Yeah, we're playing 4-3-3 right now.
Yeah, I'm a 4-3-3 kind of person.
Related to how much the USA are trying to play. But I mean, you would like to think if you play a 4-3-3 that their centre mids as a flat 4 don't have as much joy as Panama are having here. But, games aren't won on whiteboards, right? They're won on the field. Yeah. And the fact is that Karaskia and Devoy are very much imprinting their style of play and what they want to do on this game much more than the USA 3 is, even though Sands is playing very well, but 60-70% of his players are defensive, which says something about how well the opposing centre mid's doing, right?
It is, and it shows how good the centre midfielders are for Panama. You look what they do at club level, you look what they've done in this game, and it shows you that they've got quality. For a Panama side that people probably thought, the US are going to beat easily. they started to quickly show you just how good they are.
Yeah. At halftime, you enjoy this in a game. You can see a way that both teams can win. Panama's got more of the ball. It's actually 66% of possession, and that's starting to show. But in terms of XG and danger and threat to score, the USA has an advantage 0.34 to 0.18. So the game is not blown open, but both coaches have a reason to believe here. USA are going to say they can create chances. They haven't had as much of the ball, but when they have, they've done more with it. And Panama are going to say that if you can have 2/3 of the ball, then you can become more dangerous and ultimately break the opponent from that. So I can imagine both staffs at halftime talking to their team through a lens of this game being winnable for both of them, and no one's really on the back foot. Panama come out for the second half. I would love to go back and see it because they rallied emotionally. They come out with bite. Mihailovic gets absolutely bullied off the ball in the court by Vasenis in the first minute. And then the number 17, it was Fajardo. He chases a through ball. He doesn't make it, but he nudges the defender Aaron Long into his own goalkeeper. Pretty nasty collision. Game stops, needs some treatment. But it's very, very obvious that Panama's come out here and they're not messing around. There's some real fire and some real steel to how they're playing this game right now.
The coach must have had a few harsh words in the locker room because it looked like they come out like a different team. They look like a Panama side that for the USA here for the taking. Let's try and bully them. And let's rattle a few feathers. But as you saw it kind of worked. And, I'd have to credit. I mean, I was watching the game and I watched the highlights again and again and again. And I must say, what a ball on the 52nd minute by number 10. And that should have been a goal. It was clear on that should have been a goal, and that would have been 1-0. And I don't know if Panama would have scored there. I don't know if they would have gone on and won that, probably 2-0, just because of the state of the game and the way the game was going. But no, for sure, Panama definitely come out in the second half with we can win this. I felt like they went in with they come out with the belief that, the USA here for the taking, we can win this. We need to play how we know how to play and we'll take this.
Yeah, agreed. Now I'm going to put you on the spot, but best halftime coach you played for in terms of motivation and adjustments?
Best halftime coach?
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually don't know that. It's a tough question, that.
That's great insight, brother.
Nice. It's nice. It's a tough question because it's hard to say, because if you're losing, the coach makes a change, you end up winning. But then is it the coach that said something, or is it the players that have come together? Like, I've been on a team where, I won't say the name of the team because of whatever situation, but I've been on a team where we've been losing. The coach has had his team talk. We've all started walking out, huddled together, and kind of been like, right, we're going to do this ourselves. Wow. So it's kind of not like we're doing this ourselves. Like, we understand what the coach is saying, but what he's saying is not helping us.
Now that's interesting.
We've come together as a team and as senior players who have played the game really well and know how to combat a certain situation. We've then gone on the field and won. But in the eyes of everyone would say it was the coach, and the coach would take credit for it. But it was the players that was like, right, we understand what the coach is saying, but what he is telling us isn't working. But I also say, right, you have to listen to the coach, but sometimes players have to take responsibility on the field because they're the ones on the field.
Yeah. So
if certain situations aren't working, okay, the coach can say what he needs to say at halftime to give you a G up. Yes, I think that is really, really important. But also, there needs to be one or two individuals that can also change the dynamic of the game and understand that if this is not working on the field, we have to change something. So you might have to change a certain position. You might have to adjust the way you play. The person might have to press a different way. but you have to see that on the field, because I feel like the coach can see it on the sideline, but as a centre back or as a right back, you can see it from your side of the view and your picture. So it's like the coach might want you to press high up, but at the same time, you might be getting played through easily. So then that's when you say, right, no, maybe we need to sit back for a minute. But I also feel that if you do that, you have to explain to the coach why you've done that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm not going to, obviously, why you don't want to name the coach in the team there. But is that a situation where he says one thing in one game and you disagree with it and you deal with it? Or was that more a chronic disconnection between coach and staff and players, do you think?
No, I don't think it was never a disconnect, because it was, I felt, just for that game. Because there's been other games where we've been losing and he's changed one or two things and he said a few things and we've come out on one. So I feel it just depends on, that's why I said it's a tough question, because it just depends on the situation and the state of the game. Whereas, you know, you say like someone like Arsene Wenger, say for example, he didn't, when I was there, he hardly changed anything at halftime, because majority of the time we had the ball and we was dominating the game. Okay, sometimes we was one down, but at the same time, he was like, you know, we'll keep the ball, keep it going, you know, keep doing what we're doing well, and we'll get chances to score. So in his mind, he was like, you know what? If we keep going, doing what we need to do, the door will knock down and we'll get a chance and we'll score. Whereas I've been on another team when I was at Middlesbrough, and it was like, we had a manager and it's like, we knew we was playing bad at halftime and he come in and hammered all of us. And then it's kind of like, all right, well, I'm not going out in the second half wanting to play really any better because you've just hammered me in the locker room.
Yeah.
So you're like, morale is down, your spirit's down. You know, you've had a bad half. The coach is coming in, blasting you in front of everyone, picking on individuals. And you're just, you know, naturally as a player, you go in your shell sometimes. Whereas I feel as players, you need to be like, you look, I respect what he says. I say, coach, I understand that I played badly, but how I can reflect, I can change that in the second half. I can play better in the second half. So yeah, I would say, I don't know. I would say Southgate.
Such a tough one for me.
I would say Southgate.
Oh,
so as a coach, you would see it differently, because you have to give the instructions to the players in a way that they take on the responsibility of what you're telling them to do the job on the field.
Yeah.
But then I've just gone on and said something completely, you know, I've gone on and contradicted that by saying we didn't listen to the coach.
Yeah. No,
but I say that.
I don't struggle with that, because I've seen that before. What I struggle with is you got 11 guys looking back at you who've just played the half, and they're all such different personalities. You know, there are some guys where what you've just said, they're going to play better in the second half if you reinforce them and build them up. But then I've created glass guys where they start to reach a point in their career, usually after some success, where they almost get a bit ahead of themselves and they don't need the encouragement. All they get is encouragement everywhere they look. And you almost got to jar them into reality a little bit and let them know it's not good enough, because their perspective's not the same as the other player. So it's hard to deliver a halftime team talk for every personality in the room, right?
Yeah, and I think generally you have to say, look, guys, or, you know, as a coach, normally they would say, look, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like as coaches, what they do well, and I'd say a lot of what the coaches done well in that sense is the majority of the coaches that have done well and I've been successful with at halftime, they've been able to talk to the individuals in the correct way. You know, some players need to be told, you're rubbish today. Get better, otherwise you're coming off in 20 minutes. If you don't do what I do, you're coming off in 5 minutes. Some players needed that.
Yeah.
Other players at the same time, if you told that, they're going to crumble. Other players would be like, yeah, right, coach, you're right. I need to be better. So I just feel it's man management. But if you're talking to a team in a whole, I would still say that the managers that were the best were literally like, this is not good enough. This is not what we represent. This is not what we trained. This is not how we play. This is not our identity. And it's not good enough.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, because I've been on so many teams. I've had every type of different manager. I've had managers that have hammered me. Like I said, I've had managers that have had a quiet word with me. I've had managers that have left me alone. And I feel like as I've got older and the experience of having different managers, I've kind of dealt with different situations differently. So I know if I've had a bad half, so that I'll, if he's going to hammer me, I accept that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, even if he doesn't say anything, I'm kind of like, he gives you that look as if to say, you're not done well today. But within yourself. And as I've got older, and I say as my career was near the end, or later on in my career at Cincinnati or in the MLS playing for Cincinnati, it was kind of like it's normal, it's natural to have a bad half. Sometimes you can have a bad half, but it's what you do after that. If you have 5 bad touches, 5 bad passes, how do you now change that? So it's kind of like from that. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's part and parcel of being a player, isn't it? You can have bad games, but I just feel the best coaches are the ones that are able to talk to the squad on a whole and be able to tell individuals that you're rubbish from time to time, who need to be told that.
Yeah. I want your thoughts on one last thing, and then we'll move on to the second half of the game. But I'm a big believer that positivity and negativity has become massively overrated, because they can both work and they can both not work. Some players, some players you can be positive, it can backfire because they get too comfortable. Some players you can be negative and it can backfire because they don't like it, and you can work
and they upset the whole locker room.
And work being negative, giving someone foot up the rear end. So most of my experience and a lot of the research I read when I was doing a master's in sports psych is we respond to similar values to us. So if you are more motivated by fear of failure than you are excitement to win, you're more angry about losing than happy about winning. That's the personality type that's going to be most effective for you in terms of connecting with you as a coach. Whereas if you're very much a visionary and an optimist and you want to see winning and you don't want to talk about past mistakes, over time that coach is going to be the one you resonate with the most. So it's more about connection than it is being negatively. For example, I've got players that have been with me for years and I can get into them. And yes, it's negative, but our relationship and connection is a certain way and has been a certain way for so long that one incident isn't going to, cause any rift. Whereas if you've just met a player, you've got no connection, or you've never put any effort in on either end and you're distant, far apart, I don't believe positivity or negativity works if you're not connected with a player. I think if you're positive and not connected, they think you're soft. And if you're negative and not connected, they think you're an asshole and they don't want to play for you. So I'm a believer that the focus of a coach should be on connecting with the player and then making your communication situational, rather than always coming at it through one lens. Positive all the time, negative all the time. I believe either way, you become a cartoon character and not really taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the spotlight as a coach. You like you say, you go in the locker room. You've been a coach and you've seen players come in. I've been on the player cup. Players are coming in screaming and shouting and kicking stuff at halftime, and you're kind of like, as I've got, and I'm like, as players, that doesn't do anything because you're angry, okay, at the situation. But what are you doing on the field to change that? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're coming in kicking and screaming. That doesn't help as players. If the coach comes in and does that, then you're all like, all right, cool. Like, we need to listen. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, as players coming in and doing it, I'm kind of like, well, what did you do in this game? What have you done? Like, that doesn't help. That's not helping anyone. Screaming and shouting. That's where I feel the blame game comes into it. The defenders will blame the strikers will blame the defenders, and then the midfielders are in the middle because they're either here or there, they're in the middle. So it's kind of like, I feel like the midfielders are in the middle because it's kind of like, well, am I on the defensive side? Am I on the attacking side? I don't know. I'm sitting on the fence.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like you say, it's connections and being able to talk to certain individuals and players. And I'd say it's not building relationships, because it's not a relationship kind of thing. It's kind of like building the understanding of players and coaches, because you'll have a coach who's able to talk to players in certain ways, and you'll also have an assistant who can also then sit down with the player and be like, look, this is what he meant by saying that. Okay, he told you you're rubbish, but your assistant will go to the player and say, this is why he told you it was rubbish.
Yeah.
You know, and you can give that information, and the player's like, all right, he's hammered me, but I understand why. Because the coach can't literally focus on one player because he's got to think about the 11 players plus the substitutes, plus then thinking about how he's going to change the game at halftime to get back into a winning situation or to hold a victory. So it's kind of like for a coach, he can't focus his attention on one player. So that's why I feel like a coach is an essential figure in all this, because he is the one that makes the decisions. Because if you're not winning as players, you're looking at the coach to be like, well, what can he do?
Yeah.
And I feel like as players, if you haven't got that trust in the manager, that's where a lot of coaches lose, or they then leave because you've lost that relationship and you lost that trust and understanding of the players. Once you lose the locker room, that's it, because that's when they start to do their own thing. You know, I'm not listening to the coach. He's hammering me every week. I'm not listening. I don't care what he says. I'm going to go and play my own way. Well, that's not going to help anyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say Southgate, just because he understood and knew how to deal with everyone. The reason why I wouldn't say Arsene Wenger is because at halftime, majority of the team talk was the same. After the game, he didn't say anything because he knew that emotions were high. And at the end of the game, nothing needs to be said. Every player knows if they played well. Every player knows if they played bad. And at the end of the day, we won most of the game. So there's nothing for him to say. Whereas you go on other teams and teams that aren't performing well, you're running the next day. The coach is saying, look at your stats, look at this, look at that. You're running the next day. You lost 5-0. You need to run. Whereas you just run the whole 90 minutes and you're tired, but he told you didn't run.
And you lost 5-0 because all you were doing was running.
Yeah, that's what I mean. All I was doing was running. So I was all chasing shadows. So yeah, I was running good. So I mean, as I say, you're a coach. I'd like to dive into the coaching experience just to see it on the outside of it. Because I've been a player who,
I think you've just come up with an idea for our next podcast series after the Gold Cup. Coach's eye view and player's eye view.
No, I think that'd be good, because at the end of the day, I've been a player who's been on the field and been like, right, I've been an experienced player. And I've been like, I understand what the coach is saying, but we need to change this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I've been on the field where I've been like, the coach has asked me to play a bit deeper, but I know if I push a bit higher, we're going to get a lot more joy. And I've taken that and done that myself.
Yeah.
So I was that's why I say I understand the coach's side of it. And I'm saying about the player's side of it, because on the player's side of it, it's my view, isn't it? It's like, I'm saying like players need to take responsibility.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the coach gives you the DNA, gives you an identity, and gives you a blueprint to go out and perform. But sometimes you have to take responsibility as players to be able to be like, right, I know the coach wants this, but I need you in front of me to press a bit more. The coach might not be able to see that because he's looking at the left back.
Yeah, I think it's definitely another series here. But I tell you an experience I have where players think things in their right, but there's also things they're not thinking about. For example, I had a game I remember very clearly in college where our winger wanted to check in all the time. He wanted to check in back so he could drive forward. He wanted to check in on the ball. So in his mind, he's like, I can press this centre back and I can find space on the ball if I check in. What he didn't think that was part of the scout is he was playing against the slowest fullback in the conference, so we wanted him wide, high, and running at him. And every time he checked in to press the centre back, all the centre back did was roll it to the fullback, and now we're instantly down 2v1 because what should have been our fullback and winger against their fullback and winger was now our fullback against two of their guys. But in his mind, he was hurrying up this centre back that had some of the ball, and he thought he was slowing him down. So, like, nobody's wrong. This is why coaching to me is always at the pro level, an 8-month, 9-month project, at the college level, a 3-month, 4-month project, because you're going to have these situations in games where I'm looking at one thing as a coach and I'm seeing it and I'm not wrong. but you're my right back and you're looking at it and you're seeing it a completely different way, and you're not wrong either. So it has to be an exercise in reflecting on the game, getting video clips cut effectively together, looking at it and explaining not what to do, but why we want to do it. And then what you hope as a coach over time is, and this is why no matter what people tell you, you have to get results as a coach. You're hoping that player has enough faith in your preparation and methods that when he comes across times where he thinks this, but you're asking him that, he'll go with you. Now, what player's going to do that if you're 0-10? This was my...
that's what I mean, yeah, who's going to do that? But majority of the time, if you're doing well and you have respect for the coach, you listen to the coach 100%. Because even though the coach might not be right, you will listen to him because you think he's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because you respect him as the coach, you're like, no, I understand. I see what he's saying there. When really you're thinking, I'm not sure, but I respect the coach. I understand him. Do you respect the coach? So I feel a lot of it comes into respect as well, because if I'm a player, I'm going to be listening to you as a coach. No matter how many games you've played or whoever you are, you need to listen to the coach.
Yeah.
Because I also feel that has an impact on other players. Because if I was to be like, right, I'm not listening to the coach in this situation, that situation, the player's going to be like, well, I'm not listening to the coach.
Exactly.
Whereas if you stand up and then say in front of everyone, or not even in front of everyone, say to the coach, this is why I done it. Or you say to the person in front of you, look, if the coach says to you, why didn't you press? Tell him, I was the one that said I didn't want you to press because this. Yeah. And you have to state and show why you wanted that and how it worked and why it wasn't working before. Because I would say I had Ledesma in front of me and he was great because I had him on a piece of string. And literally I could tell him to go forward, go back, go side, go left, go right. And he done a lot of my hard work. Sometimes the coach would tell him not to be pressing, running all over the place. But I had him on such a good leash that we had a good relationship that attacking wise and defensive wise, we worked. And that was just because we had that understanding. And a lot of times the coach was like, oh, stay wide. But I knew the best way for him to perform and to be at his best was for him to come inside on his left foot and get on the ball.
Yeah.
Because he's lost out on the left, or lost out on the right, because he's hardly going to get the ball. And when he does get the ball, he's not effective because he's someone that needs the ball all the time. So I said to him, look, sometimes come inside and get on the ball and show your skills and do what you need to do. And just say to the coach, I said to you, go in and get the ball because that's how you perform better. Because if you go inside, create a few chances, get an assist or get a goal, the coach isn't going to say, oh, I told you to stay out wide, is he? No, he's not.
It's funny you say
you have to respect that.
All these years later, and it might be a decade on, he scored an absolute banger this season in the USL for Las Vegas.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Side and hitting one.
That's what I mean, yeah. And he set me up a few times when he's come inside. So I know how he works, and that's the relationship we have. But we also had that relationship with the coach that we was able to say to the coach, this is why I said to do this. So that's the respect that we have to then go to the coach and explain the reasons why we done that. That's the respect you have to have the coach. You can't just be like, right, every game we're going to do what we want because that's how we play. That's how we understand it. No, that's not how it works. You still have to go on the blueprint of the coach. And if you go off that a little bit, you have to explain to the coach why you've done that.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting at Chelsea with Graham Potter, because I don't know. I know you have to pick a side nowadays. I don't like Graham Potter.
What style of play they was playing.
Yeah, but what I thought was the belief that people were just going to buy in without results was borderline delusional. When you're dealing with millionaires who've played at World Cups, played in Champions League and won leagues and trophies without you, they have to be winning with you before they adapt their entire game to your system. And there seemed a narrative that Potter didn't have to meet these guys halfway. They were allowed to just keep losing and keep losing and keep losing, and nobody should question anything. I mean, you can want that, and that's nice, but that's never going to happen at the top end of pro football. If you want a connection with your players, there needs to be some success. Does every team have to win the league? No, but there has to be tangible evidence that the things you're working on in training and your video scouts and your preparation and your development of the players, there has to be tangible evidence that it's working, and the results can't keep regressing while you keep talking positively. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I understand that, and I agree. We look at the US national team because we're talking about the US. We'll talk about coaching the players after that. But you look at the US national team after they lost against Trinidad. What did they change? They changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been getting the right results. They've changed everything, completely changed everything. Now they're getting better results. Okay, they lost to Panama in the Gold Cup, and they haven't got to the final. Are they going to reevaluate things? Where they're going to bring in a new coach to start off with?
Yeah.
So now are the players now going to respect the coach? Well, they probably are. Now they're going to listen to a new coach. Now they're going to have to adapt to him.
Well,
now if they start
a new old coach, right, with US.
Huh?
It's a new old coach. They took 18
a new
months.
old coach, yeah. Going back to the old roots, yeah. Going back to what they know. So yeah, that's the easiest way to perform. So in that sense, it's kind of like they already have that respect for the coach because he's been there and done that. But now he's going to have players that are now gone on and achieved good things, and individuals now different type of characters and different profiles to probably what he had before. So now how does he deal with that? They have to buy into his system. If they don't buy into it, it's inevitable that the results aren't going to be the right thing. And then he's going to have to be, they'll sack him. So in that sense, it's kind of like, the US changed everything. They've brought in an old coach. They'll probably go back to how they was performing when they lost to Trinidad and started bringing everything back.
Yeah.
But no, it's an interesting question. That was a great question. I've never really no one's ever asked me that, and I've never actually been able to answer that. But I guess we answered that in.
I think we gave everyone. I think we gave everyone a bonus episode with that answer.
I don't know what they were. They're probably thinking. They're probably sitting there scratching their heads, thinking, "Oh, how do I figure this one out?" So do I listen to the coach or don't I listen to the coach? No, you must listen to the coach.
Well, then he's the thing. Like, it's not that it's grey area, but the fact is that there is differing situations, and it's a very building a team and human communication is a very complex process without black and white answers. And in my opinion, the people who want that black and white answer so badly struggle the most when leading 20 different people at the same time.
And we look at it now. You look at, okay, Pulisic is going to come back into this team, obviously. Okay, he's at AC Milan now. How does the coach deal with this kind of player?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a big profile player now. If he's not performing for the men's national team, but is performing for AC Milan, is he guaranteed to start, or should he be guaranteed to start in the games?
Yeah, good question. I think he will.
That's another thing you have to look at, because now if the manager comes in and wants to change his system, and everyone wants Pulisic to play, but he doesn't fit into the new system or into the new World Cup squad or the system that the coach wants to play, there'll be uproar from the fans. But at the end of the day, if he's able to perform and get the result from the squad he's built, as we know, World Cups and tournament football are built on your squad, not just 11. That's why Argentina done well. That's why Panama got well. This is why Mexico always do well in the Gold Cup, and in World Cups, and they always get there. Is they have the best squads.
Yeah,
the squads are good. Okay, they have one or two individuals. Look at Argentina. Look at Messi. He's an individual player. That's another question. How do you deal with him as a coach? But at the same time, they have a great squad. And you look at the Argentina national team, and I say it to everybody, that Argentinian national team squad wanted to win, not for themselves, but for Messi.
Yeah.
And they fought for him. And that's why they won. And that's why they was all out. No matter what happens, that was why they won. And that the whole squad was on that same path, same mentality. The coach was on the same mentality, and it all clicked.
Well, I think a real good lesson there is when that coach was hired. I remember it very clearly. Apparently, he was too quiet. He wasn't a big enough personality. It wasn't this. He wasn't that. But it's not about one guy.
It's not.
Coach can be anyone. But if Messi's fired up, if all his teammates are rallied behind this story of getting Messi his trophy, if you've got a maniac in goal who looked like an absolute street fighter, you're not dealing with a coach. You're dealing with an Argentinian group of people that will really want.
Yeah.
All right, back to the game. Big USA chance, 52nd minute. Fullback Reynolds releases Cowell, cuts back to Vasquez, scoops over the bar. He should score there, right?
Yeah, he should score there.
Almost immediately, we're up the other end. Panama right winger. Forgetting the name again. I apologize. Bacinas. He's away, gets on the ball, crosses to a wide open Diaz in front of goal. It's saved by Turner, but it's a poor header. It's about 7-8 yards out. Heads it into the ground, heads it softly, easy save. Even worse job by the USA back four, because you've got Miles Robinson marking tight, and then you have a combination of Busio, Long, and Reynolds, who leave Diaz wide open in front of the goal inside the penalty area. Real poor job. 63rd minute, we see the first subs. I thought the subs were interesting. The young fullback Reynolds is out. The young forward Cowell is out, and Roldan and Yedlin are in. And why that surprised me is this seemed an exercising adding experience in a tough battle to help the USA win this game. When, to me, if you've made the decision before the tournament to blood these young players, to blood these, backup guys, to put them in the heat of battle, I don't believe you bring them out an hour into a 1-1 game and sub in DeAndre Yedlin. Like, I don't believe he's played that game. He's won that game. I would have almost liked to have seen the young boys suffer through, because it's almost like the situations took over and it's like, let's add as much experience as we can and see if we can get through this game, which fair enough, I get it. But if you really wanted to win the Gold Cup that bad, you just wouldn't have started this lineup, right?
No, but then it comes down to it. You're in it. You're in it.
Romantic.
No, but you're in it. And at the end of the day, you want to get to the final. So you have to bring on these players, because if you lose, you can lose on penalties because it's a luck of the draw, But to lose, I would say, in 90 minutes, I think that looks worse. So that's probably why he's gone in there and probably thought, let me put the experience in to try and get us over the hurdle, to try and win it in 90 minutes. And, Yedlin come on and create a chance straight away. But at the same time, if you are wanting to give the players experience of playing tournament football, and that's what you're using this tournament for, then you have to stick with the lineup. But I also know that the coach and obviously everyone in the US wants to win this Gold Cup and get to the final against Mexico.
Yeah. And as you said, they create a chance right away. Turner finds Busio, spins Diaz really well, carries the ball 30 yards, finds Roldan, releases Yedlin, low crossover. Ferreira drags it wide. It's another golden chance, right? That's two real big chances for the USA to take a lead here. 10 minutes later, it's more subs. Long out, Vasquez out, Jordan Morris and Matt Miazga in. So same thing, very much right at the business end of the semi. We've gone from the development emphasis to getting the veterans in. I get it. Results matter. We've just talked about that. But they're not subs I was expecting to see, especially not the withdrawal of Vasquez. And they're trying to get the veterans in to guide them to a result, because right now, you can put the Twitter narrative away, you can put the fan away, you can put the narrative, the story away. They're in deep water right now against a good team with a place in the final on the line. Fajardo and Quintero come off for Martinez and veteran striker Waterman for Panama. And we get another good-looking end-to-end move in the 82nd minute. Yedlin and Roldan, the substitute duo, again combine. They swing over a cross that gets headed behind. So about 2-3 minutes later, Yedlin again crosses to Ferreira, who heads wide. I like Yedlin. I've always kind of liked Yedlin. I feel like on the attacking end, he's done more in 20 minutes here than Reynolds did in just over 60, right?
Right. So as a coach, and we're talking about it before, is the coach is getting a response from players, the coach getting a response from the team. You have to admit that substitution worked.
Oh, definitely.
So as a coach, you look at it and say, as an outsider, you have to look at it and say credit to the coach. Because he's looked at the situation and thought, well, something's not right here. Okay, he didn't make that change at halftime, but he's given it a little bit, 60 minutes he made that change, which normally managers make a change at 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel another time is where you get judged as a coach, is what you make your substitutions. How do you tweak things to see you over the line or to see how you get to see the game out? And we have to credit the coach for making that decision because right away, the US got a chance and Yedlin made a huge impact in this game. So that's
Oh,
a huge impact subs from the coach.
situation of this game. I guess the only thing I was questioning, because all cards on the table, if I'm the USA coach, I don't want to play this lineup. I don't want a team of backups. I don't want young players. I just thought that once you've dropped the young players in, leave them in to suffer almost. But maybe that's not the issue at hand.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But to say, like we say, it's a tournament, you're going to want to win it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to want to lose to Panama in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got a chance to see this out to get a victory. You know, I think it was a great from the coach. I think, you know, if you wanted to go, like we say, all out experience, then don't bring no older players and just play the younger players and see how they get on.
Yeah.
But then is that respect in the tournament?
That's interesting, right? Because like Yedlin and Morris and Roldan, I'd almost call them bridge players. You know, they're not youngsters like Cade Cowell. They're not exciting kids playing in Europe like Reynolds, but they're also not the stars like Christian Pulisic, like Timothy Weah, like Weston McKennie. They're almost halfway between. They're not young and they're not young and unproven, but they're also not impact starters.
No, but then in the next World Cup, is Yedlin going to be in there?
Probably not, right?
Right. So maybe this could be. No, I'm not saying he's definitely not going to be, but I don't think he will. Not going to be a starter because we've already seen that there's younger ones coming up in 4 years' time, in 4 years' time, or whatever long. He might not be there. You know, 33, 34. You know.
I think he was excellent in this game. I would not.
No, it was great. I think he's a good player. I watch him a lot. Obviously when he was at Newcastle. Yeah. But
expect to see him in the World Cup roster.
Watch him in Miami a lot. I think he adds a lot attacking wise. But I think he's a good player. I think he's a decent, good player. Good player. Well, it's a great impact player to bring on anyway.
Yeah. 89th minute corner for the USA. Mihailovic swings it in, flicked on, falls to Miazga at the back post, smashes the shot into the crowd, and then some very, very late drama here in injury time. Anderson rattles across off the shins of Jones for a corner. Ball bounces around, Busio clears it, and then Carrasquillo threads a wonderful pass to Diaz's feet. Slot, I don't think this one was designed in terms of going backwards to go forwards. Slots it away, flags raised. It's offside for sure, but there's some nervous moments for the VAR here because, you know, for me, there's 3 players offside and Diaz might be offside, so that's 3.5 guys. But then they started looking at a potential handball. I think that's what they were looking at. So there's a couple of minutes here where the crowd's holding its breath, and we don't know if Panama is going to be gifted an injury time penalty to win the game. What are your thoughts? Was it offside? Was it handball?
No, I think it was offside. So yeah. I think it's a good call.
Agreed.
And this is what we say now. It's this is where you say VAR works for you and it works against you.
Yeah, it does.
But at the current stage, it's majority of the time correct because when you look right back at the replay, you realize that it has been the right call majority of the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is important to, as much as I don't like it, it is important to have it in these big games and big situations because obviously these big situations and big moments in games change the dynamic of the game and change the whole impact of the match. And literally changes the result. You imagine that's not given or that's given and it's 1-0 to Panama and then you find back after the game that it was offside or it was handball. You'll be an uproar.
Correct. Very impressive Carrasquillo. We're in the waning moments of regulation. Now he's on the ball.
He should have had about 5 assists in this game.
I know. He drives forward. He releases Waterman, who looks a strong old unit up front, by the way, who's come off the bench. Puts over a cross. Diaz dives at it. Close, inches away. And one last chance. It's Yedlin again. Goes forward again. Cuts inside. Gets fouled. And there's a threat right at the end. Nothing comes of it. final whistle blows, and we are going into extra time. 90 minutes are over. Who would your pick be at that moment in time? What was your gut feeling on who was going to win this game? Because I had switched to Panama, if I'm honest.
Panama, they had more opportunities. They looked a bit fresher.
Yeah.
It looked like they was really, really ready to go for another 20, half an hour more.
Yeah. For me, the difference was very, very much a case of the best players on both teams were wearing number 8. It was the USA and it was Carrasquilla for Panama. But Panama was driving forward, releasing wingers, pinging one-touch combinations with Godoy, whereas Sands was just putting in a very impressive defensive performance, largely because his team was, on the back foot again and again and again. I think USA were without attacking threat, but I just thought Panama looked a bit better. We go into the extra time. First chance comes from a Busio cross. Ferreira heads it straight at the goalkeeper in the 96th minute. Finishing a bit wayward, but he's going to sort that out before this game's over. But Panama lead, 99th minute. Carrasquilla again. I hope I'm not saying his name wrong, because if I have, then I've said it wrong about 50 times. He's on the ball. He's facing forward. He releases Anderson. Turner comes off his line, and Anderson kind of tips it over him to Waterman. Waterman one touch tips it back to him, so a little volleyed 1-2. Back to Anderson, rolls it into an empty net for his first career goal. And this is a guy, Justin, that wasn't even rostered in the group stages of this tournament. He was a late injury replacement. He's come on to sub this game. He's never scored a career goal. And now he's put them 1-0 up in extra time against the host nation. And, I would say he silenced the crowd, but not really. There is a sizable Panama contingent in this crowd based off the reaction to that goal, right?
Yeah, there is. And there always normally is. They're well supported, well traveled, well followed, and what a way to score your first game and make a name for yourself. What an entrance, what an introduction, and what a ball again, by the way.
Yeah, now I've got a question on Yedlin, because it's a good goal. It's a great pass. The replay from the side shows that the USA offside line, the centre-backs and the left-back, they look 2 yards in front of Yedlin. For me, I've always been a believer that the full-backs set the offside line, not the centre-backs. And the reason I was taught that is where a centre-back has to look here and look here, the full-back's already looking. So if Yedlin, to me, is stood there looking down the line and he's gave the goal scorer a cushion to be onside, that's an error to me. But you were a Premier League right back. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, but then you say that, yes, that is correct. But as centre-backs and as a centre-back and as a right-back, I was always told in the Arsenal Academy that the 2 centre-backs set the offside line. Maybe because that was the rule when Dixon, Keown and Winterburn and Tony Adams were there, because they were the centre-backs and the 2 centre-backs set the offside line.
Yeah.
Because the reason why they said that is that the fullback should always be a tiny bit ahead of the centre-backs, is because normally, majority of the time, if they're going to make runs, they're going to make runs in between the centre-backs, like in this goal. So they're the ones that set the line up, and they're the ones that make the step-up line. And normally they're the vocal ones. So they're the ones that would say step, and they would set the line up. And if you're already a high up as a fullback against, when they do step up, you're already up there, then you're not lagging behind. If you're lagging behind, thinking you're going to call offside and the 2 centre-backs want to step up, well, then he's going to be onside like this goal.
Yeah.
So, but I understand also why a right-back or a left-back should be able to call the offside line, just because they're looking along the line anyway.
Yeah, that's what
the centre-backs like to do it because they're essential people in the game.
Yeah. My thoughts are, and again, this is how I was taught it. My thoughts are, 1 second, I'm just going to have to decline this for a minute. My thoughts are, by the time, if the ball's on the right side and the centre-back look at the right side, by the time he checks left shoulder for a potential runner, he could be a step behind. And if both backs are alert to have this way of doing it, you just do it quicker. But I can see both ways. You can't argue with the Arsenal Youth Academy, largely because, Dixon, Keown, they won leagues. They kept lots of clean shots, 1-0 to the Arsenal. But they're very much two different ways to do things.
And I say again, that goes down to the coach, because a coach might want the right back and the full backs to call offside, which some do. And some people say it's up to the centre back. And then I guess, like I say, as individuals, it's who is the one that wants to step up and be like the one. I will call the line.
I think offside is something like there's areas of the game where there's room for flexibility. I think whatever team you're on, everyone on the team has to do offside the same way, right? Because
of course, 100%.
I think on this is a disaster.
Yeah, we're losing 6-0. Yeah.
Now, Panama have got their tails up now. Busio gets turned over by Waterman, who drives into the box, swaps passes, forces a save from Turner. The ship's shaking a little bit here for me for the USA, but then they get off the hook in a strange way because the adrenaline takes over and Godoy gets a yellow card for absolutely smashing into Sands. It's a terrible tackle. It could be a red, but it's took that little bit of we've scored, we're on the front foot momentum away, because now Sands is on the floor getting treatment, rightly so, and there's a break in the game, and Godoy is immediately subbed for Welsh. Now, for me, it would make sense if he was subbed for a terrible tackle that was a yellow card, but it's too immediate. It's almost like Welch was lined up and he took one last shot while he had it into Sands, right? Because it was literally tackle, get up, and get subbed off.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was crazy. Crazy moment in the game.
Fresh legs come in for the USA again. Gressel and Tolkien for Jones and Busio. Seem to me like just fatigue subs if I'm reading it. And then just like the game in Canada, USA show grit, they show resilience, they show fight, and they level the scores after being behind in extra time again. Miazga chips a ball forward. Big Jordan Morris nods it down, and Ferreira hits a beautiful volley to level the scores.
Kenya, what a player.
Yeah, it's a big goal. We can't have this, it's a 6-0 win narrative. It's a massive pressure goal. It's against a better opponent. It's a wonderful technique. Well done, Ferreira, right?
Unbelievable technique. Great finish. For a player of his age as well, that's a great finish. I don't care who you're playing against, what level you're at. That is a great finish. Even the top strikers would be proud of that. Agreed.
Wonderful goal, really, and almost applauding on my couch. The sub for Panama, Welsh drives a shot at Turner. Replay shows the USA should have a goal kick. The referee gives a goal kick wrongly. Cagey final minutes, 120th minute, the sub Anderson again does a little stop-start to open his shooting lane, curls a shot with the outside of his foot, saved pretty easily. One last cross, pumped in by Roldan. It's a weak header. It's easily saved. And we are off to penalties again. We've talked about the penalties last week. Sounded like they were pretty traumatic for you. 2 in 2 rounds, back-to-back games. Tough one.
It is, yeah, but you should have the experience of PKs. Obviously, It's a new game. Semi-final, so stakes are higher. And like I said, it's like who wants to take one? Who's brave enough and who's confident enough to take a penalty?
Exactly. Ferreira steps up for the first penalty. Obviously full of life, full of adrenaline. Just saved the game. It's a poor penalty. Saved to the goalkeeper's right. Stepped up after scoring a banger. It's a bad start. Saw some ridiculous narratives how big players don't miss penalties. Ridiculous. Saka missed one in the Euros and has currently gone on very quickly to be one of maybe England's best attacking player outside of Kane. But it's a shame. Gives Panama the upper hand. Escobar, the centre-back, slow walk forward, smashes it down the middle, stares at the goalkeeper like he's the Terminator, borderline emotionless. That's what you want the centre-back to be, right? 1-0 Panama. Mihailovic comes up, sends keeper the wrong way, low into the corner. Diaz comes up, sends Turner the wrong way. Pressure builds. Morris comes up. Beautiful penalty. It's hit well. It's in the top corner. There's no saving that. And then Martinez comes up for Panama, gives it the little shuffle step. It's a poor penalty. It's an easy save. And now we're 3 penalties down each and the scores are level. Gressel comes up, tucks it away. And now the tables are flipped completely because Panama is the team under pressure. It's 3-2 to the USA. Barcena steps up. He is absolutely immune to the pressure. I would say he should up rather than running it. Little dink along the ground with Turner just frozen. What a time to pull that penalty out. Miazga scores, celebrates wildly. Look very much like pressure being released. Waterman comes up. Miazga gets in his face. Miazga's walking back from his penalty. Waterman's coming forward with his, and Miazga seems to be really in love with this hard man image. He gets in his face. You don't see that very often. For me, in a shootout, that's a cardable offence. You know, shootouts are tough enough without the guy walking back from his penalty, having a shot at you, and it's too much of an advantage to me to be the guy who's just scored and to start running your mouth. That's up there with the taunting and unsportsmanlike for me. But Waterman scores, shushes the crowd, gets booed, but, you know, given what we did to him, you get that cope. Roldan comes up for penalty 6 and rolls it into the corner, but it is a good save, a very good save by Mosquera, and he has now put Panama with a golden kick, essentially. Carrasquilla comes up with a chance to score. He's the man of the match. He scores it. It's a great yeah, he sent them into the final, and he deserves that after this game. He very much deserves that. So, you know, I think some of the post-tournament narrative has been silly. Where do we go from here? We lost to Panama, blah, blah, blah. For me, when this tournament started, that narrative died because this isn't a reflection. This is not the USA roster going to the World Cup. It's an issue in depth. It's an issue in how good are these players. It's an issue in putting pressure on guys who haven't been the guys in the firing line when the USA's went to battle in tournaments. So I'm going to end this episode with asking you 3 players on the USA roster whose stock went up. 3 players who have put themselves in a position to be part of that tournament roster in 2026. Based on performance. Ferreira. Yeah.
Well, let me pull the squad up now, and I'll tell you exactly who I think. Players that have.
I mean, for me, Matt Turner's a shoe-in. Obviously, does he start a goalkeeper? That's
yeah.
Conversation on that, but he's in the squad. So Long and
Robinson, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to say Vasquez because he scores.
Yeah.
But now, when you look at it, they're bringing in the striker, the Arsenal striker, who's been on loan, who's now US. Yeah. And now we hear that Lucho might be trying to get into a US national team with Acosta. Yeah. Will Vasquez get in there? Probably not now.
I think Vasquez offers something different. You know, a lot of these USA forwards, Ferreira included, they're very technically gifted. They're very good on the dribble.
He's old school number 9, isn't he?
Vasquez. Yeah, but if you're looking at Brian McBride, you're looking at Alan Shearer, you're looking at Target Man, Vasquez offers something that the rest of the forwards...
The old school number 9, isn't he? It was the old school English, typical English number 9.
Him and Daryl Dike are probably the only 2 Americans that I would describe as target men.
Yeah. So, other than them 3, maybe I need more than 3, but I'd say Ferreira for sure.
Yeah.
I like the right back. I guess I'm biased because that's my position.
I like both fullbacks. I liked Reynolds and I like Jones.
I like Robinson.
I think Yedlin's age is going to see him miss out. You know, I wasn't blown away by any of the centre-backs, if I'm honest.
No.
Sands was useful. Is he as good as Weston McKennie in that sort of enforcer role? I don't think so. Mihailovic is a no for me, given the other options. Busio, good player, technically good. Maybe hangs on the end of the roster. Maybe not. I think Ferreira and Vasquez are deep in the conversation. And I was left this tournament wanting to see Cade Cowell play again multiple times. Really enjoyed him.
Yeah, I like to see him play. I like to see him get a good run of games. I guess now it's back to their clubs and see how they perform at club level.
Yeah. And we get to see Panama one more time. Very, very, very impressive. Carrasquilla was wonderful. And they got a final coming up against Mexico.
Mexico.
All right. That's it for today's episode. Any final thoughts, Justin, as we move on to the final?
No, it was good. Good little tournament. I'd say it's an experimental tournament for the US. Did it pay off or didn't it? Is the big question I think they're going to have to ask themselves.
Yeah.
I think moving forward, they probably won't be doing that again. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's a tournament, and it's a tournament you're going to want to win.
I think
For me, it's tough because obviously the top players are playing in Europe. And when they're playing in Europe, they can't play in these tournaments because they're either having a rest after a long tournament. But at the end of the day, if it was the World Cup, the players would be going. So if it's me and you want to win the tournament, you have to take your best players no matter what the situation is. You look at the Premier League and you look at other tournaments. Okay, they finish after the season, but all the top players go.
Yeah.
They don't say, "Oh no, he's not going because he's had a long season." You look at all the City players; they all went on international duty at the end of the season. They won Champions League. You know, they had a good party after it, but they still went to the national team. They're not resting any players. They're not saying, "All right, this tournament or this game, we're gonna the European Conference Cup, we're gonna play all their youngsters to see how it is to experiment." No, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, to get where you need to get to, you need the players to be playing together on a regular basis in tournament football and in competitions, because that's the only way they're going to gain consistency, they're going to gain confidence, and they're going to gain the ability to the understanding of playing with each other.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're never going to get that. You're always going to be experimenting with different players. And when it comes to the World Cup, you're not going to be ready because the players haven't played together. Whereas the other nations, you look at Panama, a lot of the players have played together. You look at some of the other teams. You look at the Argentina team, they went unbeaten for how long? But how many of them players played in every game or majority of the games leading up to the World Cup? Nearly all of them.
Yeah.
So, you know, yes, it was an experimental thing, and I don't think they're going to do it again.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're not going to do it again. I think it was largely a timing thing with the European season.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But I think if 2 years from now, Ferreira comes off the bench and gets a goal, or Ferreira or Vasquez or Cowell have became starters, I think they're going to call this tournament a success on that alone. I think
you have to. Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
in their right now success for the possibility of depth in the future. And you know, if you don't like the decision, you'll have spent the whole tournament unhappy. But if you do like that decision, then you know we'll see. You're going to have to wait 12 to 18 months for the fruits of this this project.
Yeah, and I guess you're only going to know that when the next international friendly is, when you know everyone's available and who gets left out and who doesn't get left out. And then I think you'll gauge on who done well in the tournament and who didn't, because when the big names come back, you know, you're going to look at the positioning wise. Are you going to look at someone who's a traditional number 9, or are you going to look at someone who's a squad player? So I think they're the kind of decisions we're going to have to make, because now you're going to get a lot more people wanting to be part of the US national team.
Agreed. All right, that's it for this week. One more game in the tournament, and thanks for listening.
Cheers, mate. You stop it there.